Hello. Hola. Buenas tardes a todos. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for this, our first virtual event. Hope all of you and your loved ones are keeping well and healthy during these challenging times, during this pandemic. We know it has been a tough year for all of us and also for the industry. But life must go on, and as a group, we have working hard to put this event together for all of you. We are honored to have with us this afternoon 4 top senior executives and professionals in the mining industry who will be sharing their views on how COVID-19 has affected our lives and the industry. Also, a special thanks to Alexa Translation, our sponsor event. To open the event, I am proud to introduce our moderator, Monica Ospina. Monica is a corporate social responsibility and social impact expert with over 15 years of experience in the field. She is the founder and director of Otrade, a socioeconomic development firm specializing in designing and implementing strategic solutions that support industry and productivity and community development. As an author, she has created the Local Community Procurement Program, a sustainable supply chain model awarded by the IFC World Bank in 2012. Also contributed to the IFC World Bank Guide for the Early Stakeholder Engagement in 2015. And most recently, she was awarded as Distinguished Lecturer by CIM, the Canadian Institute of Mining and Metallurgy. Monica, all yours.
Thank you very much, Manuel. And thank you very much for Hispanos in Mining for creating this space. And all of you, thank you very much for joining us. Bienvenidos a todos, un gusto gigante de conectarnos con América Latina. It is an honor for me to introduce 4 brilliant Latino minds. And it is quite a pleasure, and we're gonna have an event today that is just much more friends chatting, friends having a good conversation. So I would like to start telling you who are these brilliant minds. I will start with Fernando. Fernando, say hi. Hey, so Fernando Ragone is from Argentina. Fernando is the Chief Financial Officer for Finland Iron Mines. More than 20 years of experience in the industry. He has been working with First Majestic, Primero Mining, Glencore, Estrada. Well, that says a lot. And he has an MBA from the Catholic University of Valparaiso in Chile. And he's a chartered accountant. So thank you very much, Fernando, for joining us today. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Okay, David Londoño. David, hi, say hi. Hola. David is also a fellow Colombian, which makes me very happy, and also an amazing and talented professional. 35 years of experience in the industry. He has worked with the Tour Gold, Anglo Gold Ashanti, and Barrick. He is a mining engineer for Universidad Nacional de Colombia, mis respetos, and a Master of Science in Earth and System Engineering from Colorado School of Mines. Thank you very much, David, for making the time to join us. Gracias. We cannot ignore Venezuela. So here is France Tenaille, an amazing woman in the industry. Say hi, France. She joined Gowling. She's one of the top lawyers connecting Latin America with North America and doing an amazing job around what is corporate law, mergers and acquisition, corporate finance, and so on. And she is the bridge connecting and creating opportunities in the region. Thank you, France, for making the time. Gracias. And we have today Cecilia Mimbela, the human resources flag in this panel. Hi, Cecilia.
Hello.
From Peru, which is fantastic. Hola. And Cecilia has a beautiful background in psychology and a master's degree in people management. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from her from that human capital perspective. And she had over 20 years experience in the industry, working with Hudbay Minerals, Barrick Gold, Pianeta Mine, and right now with Agnico Eagle. So as you can see, we have lots of years of experience in the industry here sitting in this panel, which is a fantastic opportunity. So I would like to start by asking, if you don't mind, we are very curious here and we would love to know, where are you connecting from? We will know, where are you? Where are you in Latin America, North America, in Canada, in the US? It will help us to understand where are you connecting so we can get closer to you. We are going to be having our panel in English, but if you feel that you want to write a question in Spanish, let us know. We will be very happy to include your idea. at the end of the session, we're going to get Q&A. So we're going to start kind of warming up this conversation a little bit about COVID. COVID is the topic for today. And we're going to start a little bit about that personal part because it touches all of us. And I always say to my good friends that COVID is kind of when you put your kid in timeout. So the entire world is in timeout right now to think about it. And I'm sure many people in the world are thinking about it right now. And I would like to start by asking each of you guys, COVID creates a distance between families, the challenge in traveling. How much this has impacted you and your families? So who would like to start?
So I'll start.
Okay.
I think probably of the whole group, I'm calling from a little place called Kirkland Lake in Canada, in Northern Ontario. And since COVID started, it caught me here in Canada. And my family lives in the US. So since March, I've only been twice home to see my wife and the kids. So yeah, it's made a big impact in my family. Every time I go there, when I come back to Canada, I have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine, working from a room without being able to go anywhere, without being able to exercise, etc. So it's had a big effect in myself personally.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And your family, how is your family feeling about it? Because it's the other side. What do they say?
Yeah, that's the other side. Obviously, they feel they're alone in Denver. So it's also impacted big time in there.
Well, this is one of the things when technology does a trick, no? I'm sure you're connecting a lot in a video conference and get closer to them.
Absolutely.
That's great.
It's a blessing,
Yeah, I know. God bless technology these days.
It's a blessing, FaceTime or Skype or Zoom, it's a blessing because you can communicate with your, wife, kids, and with your parents in Colombia, in my case, and a family in Colombia. So, yeah, it is definitely something good that we have this time.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Thank you for sharing that. I can see Cecilia is ready to chat. Yes, Cecilia.
No, I was thinking from that perspective that definitely COVID has impacted all of us, and especially families. In my case, for example, yes, I have family back home. I have family in the US as well. Your kids. My son lives, downtown, and it's more and more it's a reduced time that you can have with them because you need to be careful. You need to be at home. You need to comply with the safety measures. But at the same time, I bless technology because that gives you that opportunity to be in contact with your, I would say, your kids, with your social network. And what is very, very important from that perspective is that we need to continue to be conscious about the importance of taking care of each other. So from that perspective, the physical distance that we need to abide for. It's like, for example, I'm not able to see my mom, but I'm not able to hug my immediate family either. I'm not able to hug her. And from a Latin American perspective, that it's something that we are all used to do very often. I'm a hugger and a kisser, and that is something that we cannot do these days.
Well, you just mentioned something that is, I think it touches all of us. Our Latin culture is the most beautiful thing is that closeness, no, that ese apapacho, that kind of sense of love.
From my point of view, it's I have a little bit of everything, right? Because I'm in Canada, and the truth is that I only have one family member in Canada, which is my brother. My mom is in Venezuela. My sister is in the U.S. My other brother is in Mexico. So, because of the situations that everybody knows is going to Venezuela, we're all spread around, and it's been tough because and my daughter, I have an older daughter that is traveling as well. So at the beginning, it was incredibly tough. My daughter was supposed to come to visit in May, so we couldn't see her until, she only came at the end of the summer. She had to quarantine, and then she came in, and so it was very, very tough. With regards to my mom can't leave. She's in Venezuela. She can't leave the country. I can't come and see her. So, you know, it's the same situation, right? Like we are all experiencing, you know, we try to communicate, we try to be in touch, we try to make sure that everybody is okay. But at the end of the day, it's hard. It's a difficult situation where, you know, it's not that you don't want to, you just simply can't. And when you know that you can't, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm lucky in the sense that, you know, what is actually in Canada, at least because we don't have, people with at high risk, then my brother at least can come and I can give him a hug, and we do hug. But it's the only thing that I have, and so like everybody else, I'm sure here and everywhere in the world, it's a tough situation, and particularly when our families tend to be spread around. That happens with Latin American people that immigrate to other countries.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, I can totally see. I will share mine at the end, so I'm not excluded. Fernando.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. And I think that my experience is very similar to all the prior comments that we heard, and very similar probably the people in listening to us. COVID had created a tremendous amount of stress for us because it impacts us in all lives, right? Not just professionally at work, but also on our family at home, and also with the loved one that we don't have close to us. My personal experience, my parents are at high risk for the age and for some prior condition, and to me created a huge stress that you know, knowing that if something happened, well, I cannot do anything. Unfortunately, I have very good friends that you know, in Venezuela and Peru, that they lost the parents. The parents, they were in the intensive care unit for a week, and they couldn't do anything. So that kind of stress or anxiety, I guess, it's with us every day, and we need to learn how to manage that. So it's I think it's been challenging. A year ago, no one could have imagined or pictured this. Certain things like social distancing that now is kind of normal. A year ago, we never could think about that, right?
So true. Thank you, Fernando, and thank you for sharing that. Well, I will share mine because it will be unfair not to. It is heartbreaking. In my case, I live the last day Colombia closed air access, and I was in the last flight from Air Canada to Canada. And I can tell you, it feels like a war zone. Like I was leaving half of me because my mom was behind in Bogota, but I was so happy and excited to see my son in Canada coming. So when I sit in that chair on a plane, my heart was broken, and I had tears for long hour because it's not fun. Is when you realize, and I totally agree with you, Franz, and with you, Fernando, with all of you, that is when we realize what is important, what is really, really important in our lives, and it's those loved ones. And technology, God bless, because right now I never thought I would do prayers with my mom, so I do prayers with my mom in Zoom. I think the woman must be the happiest, said that it's a miracle now, but those prayers are just a way of saying I love you. So I can feel the pain, and me too. And it's nice to have my little one around and be mommy, even the lockdown, and mommy, cooking, cleaning lady, teacher, working, and everything. But it's also heartbreaking to see the people who dedicate their life to us in this situation. Cross fingers, things are gonna get better, and cross fingers, we're gonna give the most loving hug and kisses to our loved ones when we see them again. Thank you very much to you all, because it is, if anybody in this connecting with us wants to share and think that we like to share something, please use the chat room for that. So let's now move to the Latino culture. And we were talking a little bit about this already. And the next question goes around that, do you think Latinos will live different, the new normal? Or it is really kind of changing us? I noticed that the kissing is kind of something that now we cannot do. The elbow, hello, it is kind of weird for us. But what else do you guys think that is the new normal for Latinos? Who wants to take that question?
I think it's going to change here in the US and in Canada, because of the environment that we live on. Is people are not going to be touching each other. People are not going to be embracing, hugging. I don't think it's going to change down south. I think people are going to go back into hugging and being together like 2 centimeters apart, etc. But here, yeah, we feel the change now.
You feel it. Okay, who else wants to share something?
I agree with David. I think that you can see the culture in Canada and in US is probably a bit less. You normally don't hug or shake hands unless you really know the person, right? In our culture, you hug everyone pretty much. And that have to be changed. But I think that the key point is the environment, right? You've seen the approach that we are having in Canada. People are really following the strict rules, maintaining distances, and wearing the mask, and that's not necessarily followed in the US. You have to see the TVs, and you sort of see massive amount of people without masks all next to each other. And so it's by country. Probably Europe is going to be the same. So depending on the culture that you bring to this equation, you will react differently.
Yeah, no, it's very true. France, I can see you. I want to say something.
Yeah, no, what I wanted to say is that, thank goodness, because in Canada, we're following and everybody's following the directions, you can see the difference with the rest of the world, right? So, we're doing relatively well. I'm not saying great or bad, but relatively much better than many countries. Look what's happening in Europe, look what's happening right now in other countries. And unfortunately, in Latin America right now, it's starting to go up again. I think the major change, I think the people that know each other and that are more or less within the same bubble will continue to do what they've done, right? So as I said, maybe, guilty, but, generally speaking, you're more careful, but the people that you're close and you're very close, you keep it, and, you will have. I think where the difference will come is with the people that you're not close, and I think that's also for Latin Americans, both here in Canada. And I think, I suspect a little bit also in Latin America, in that, I think people are keeping, and I can tell you based on what I'm hearing from the people that are in Latin America that, everybody's wearing their mask. Everybody's actually, a lot of people are trying to follow. So I do think there will be a little bit of a change, particularly at least with the people that you're not close to, and maybe for a while, and let's be clear, if the vaccine comes up, I think we'll go back to where we were because we all need it. But I do think that for the short term, particularly with, the people that you're not close to, I think definitely in Canada and maybe a little bit abroad, there'll be some distance, that will change a little bit the traditions, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of put it on hold type of.
Yes.
Kind of fun.
Something like that.
Cecilia,
I exactly agree with what Dave, Fernando, and friends shared with us. I think it's a matter of culture and understanding that the culture. Obviously, there are some I would say measures that have been implemented locally. We know, for example, back home in Peru, the curfews were something that were implemented in the country to stop spread, and that's something that worked, and in some other locations that perhaps that's not necessarily is needed. Here where we are lucky, as we all mentioned, I think, in terms of how we live and how they think to God and to the measures. And I think we're very obedient in that case, because we are really making sure that we are keeping those hygiene measures in place in every single way we can. So from that perspective, I see that the world is gonna slightly change at the beginning until we get back to normal, I would say, from that perspective.
Well, that is a good point. And I think that also in terms of the culture, when we talk about Canada, it's a little bit more disciplined on somehow the distance and the use of masks and so on. In Latin America, at the beginning, it was kind of loose because you were really until governments were very strict when they have imposed those measures. Okay, so hopefully we go back to more of our nature very soon. So it is something, and I appreciate Fran's comment about in our very close bubble, we cannot ignore who we are. So I'm sure hugs and kisses are happening a lot. Okay, and a lot for you, David, when you go to Denver. I'm sure that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's move the conversation a little bit to the global and in general to the industry, because I'm sure many people would like to hear from all of you. And as I mentioned at the introduction, we have the good fortune to have people from very different angles at a high level in their careers. Let's start talking about COVID, the impact of COVID. What I was saying that is the time of thinking about it, and COVID and inclusion. Do you see that COVID on somehow is creating a positive impact around building awareness about the inclusion of Latinos in companies, in accessing opportunities in the industry? I would like to start from Cecilia, because Cecilia sees that very close in her trenches. So, and I would love to hear from all of you. Cecilia.
I would say definitely yes, but I would say at the same time that it's from that perspective. Unfortunately, at the same time, the concern in organizations about being more inclusive in the workspaces have started some time ago. Okay. It's not only because of COVID that this is gonna have an impact in organizations. I think that it's something that we are all working towards, which is really, really good. I would hate to say that because of what is happening right now, it's changing the world from that perspective. I think from my personal point of view, that already started some years ago. And that is very good. That is very positive. And I would say that will continue to happen. And that is very positive for all of us. I think the world in general terms, it's more open and more conscious about the importance of equality, the importance of being on the same, on that we are all together and that we all need to push in the same direction. That's my personal view on that.
No, this is fantastic. And I'm very happy that you highlighted that this push for equality, inclusion, and social participation, it is a big wave. It is a big wave. And yeah, it is a big wave. And I'm glad that from the human resources angle, you see that is happening. So I'm sure many people in the audience are having a smile right now to see that it's happening already.
And I think,
yeah, David.
I think this group is a very good example of that inclusion from companies. Is being from South, or being from a different country or different backgrounds, but having the experience and the knowledge and the capacity to be in a high position. I think the companies are opening to that. There is a lot of diversity in, let's say, here in the company that I work for. There is a lot of diversity, and that's something very good that I see is happening across the industry.
I would like to expand the question in that case, David. It is, Canada is diverse and is one of the most beautiful things that Canada has. Do you think it's also part of the Canadian culture of the diversity, or is also that in the company that you are working with, it is a little bit of a more of a call for inclusion?
I think it's a Canadian thing, but I think this company embraces that much more than some other companies.
That's fantastic. Okay, Fernando, I can see you want to talk.
Yeah, no, maybe let me put my comment onto that question, and then I'll go back to the original questions. I think that is Canada. Look, I lived 8 years in Australia with my family. And Australia, they were very proud to be inclusive and to have people from every country. But they were not really as inclusive as in Canada when I came and arrived to Canada 15 years ago. So it really changed my perspective. You walk outside and you see people from different ethnics. In any company that you go, you will have people from the different parts, and that's normal. I think that I read sometime that 66% of the people living in Canada, they were not from original descendant from Canadians. They if you go back to the ancestors, they came from other countries. So I think that really differentiates Canada from any other country. Back to your original question in COVID, I don't think that COVID will really change anything in terms of inclusion, because as I agree that these inclusion discussions started ages ago, and you see it's been brought in at every board level and every company. Look and if you look at the panelists here, you'll see more girls than boys, right? So that's already happening. Now the COVID potentially can have a negative impact on that, depending on what happened with the borders. At the moment, the borders are closed. There is no new immigration. It's hard for people to come and trying to find jobs in Canada or anywhere else during this potential restriction. So we'll see how long COVID lasts, but potentially on the new barriers that COVID potentially create, we might have an impact, but in the sense of less people participating on the pools, but not from the discrimination or inclusion point of view.
Okay, that's a very good point. Franz?
So maybe from a different perspective, or maybe a little bit of a different approach, I think, Canada is a fantastic country, but Canada is not without fault either, as we've learned in the past few years, right? So, but the beautiful thing about Canada, has happened, I think, in every country in the world. There's been inclusion issues, there's been racism issues in every country in the world, but the beautiful thing about Canada is that it had, is tackling head on and is actually taking action at many, many levels, which I think is very important. And that's why we're also seeing that, as Cecilia was mentioning, in a movement in the industry, in a movement, to bring more diversity, more inclusion, more representation from, all aspects of life. I can tell you that my firm, I'm very happy and very proud to work in a law firm that is considered one of the most diverse firms in the legal industry. That was one of the first firms to sign it was, I think, a statute about women participation of the UN. So, we have diversity groups, we have diversity initiatives that are very, very well established, and we work really, really hard in making sure that at all levels, people from all, aspects, colors, religions, and sexual orientations are included. So I do believe, as Cecilia said, that this is a movement that started early on. Perhaps COVID, what could have done or could be doing is that as we're all more at home and we're paying more attention to the news and we're paying more attention to everything, certain topics are, being more participative, with certain things we're actually, learning more, where certain things we're actually doing perhaps a little bit more, and perhaps we're educating a little bit more. And perhaps because we have now the opportunity to be, at home, and rather than spending time commuting, we're working and we're doing, video conferences, and we're also discussing this in the table with our families, when before, we were commuting. Now we actually have the opportunity to be having these discussions, which of course is an important discussion that actually keeps moving forward. So I'm one of the very optimistic ones. I do see change, and I do believe that again, it was already in the making. We may cover, later on. I know you want to talk about boards. We're going to talk about that, and I do believe that also technology now is going to open a lot of doors, particularly for seniors, for example, for people with disabilities, for people, that before it was more difficult to get a job in any industry. And now, because they're going to be connected and, working from home, perhaps, as me, I was a dinosaur, I didn't even know how to use Zoom, when all this started. I had no clue whatsoever. I'm still learning every day of my life. And, but it's incredible. It's incredible what it's doing. And I do believe that, again, now people with disabilities, people, seniors, and people from all walks of life are getting or are going to have more opportunity to do other things, like, for example, handle drones for visits in mining sites, which are happening, by the way. So, so there's a lot of things that actually are happening. And I do believe that, I think what COVID has done is to finally open the world to change. Everybody was very set on the way things had to happen. And now we're thinking differently, and we're thinking more openly as to how things could happen. And I'm one of those very optimistic that believe that a lot of change that was in the process. It's coming in a different way, just to simply open more doors, because of the knowledge that we're all basically now getting.
If I can make a comment on that one, Franz. When we're talking about technology, one of the things that COVID is doing is accelerating bringing that technology. And one of the things that, has been around for a while is automation. And so now companies are talking more about how do we accelerate automation, like, self-driving trucks at the mines, operating from your house or from a main office when people cannot travel to remote locations like I work. And that's what people have to understand, that because there is a change on that, there's an acceleration. Maybe they have to go on and study something different to mine engineering or etc. So start changing on what we are going into, which fields are we going to, because that's going to be the future of pretty much our companies.
Well, it is interesting. I like to call this the Renaissance. I think that every single time humanity is shaped by something, sadly in the medieval time by war and diseases is that we need that shake. And I like to call, even at the personal level and my firm, we are living a renaissance. We are reinventing things. We find ways. And that's when we can see that how creative we can be. And the sky is the limit, seriously. So I'm joining you, Franz, and the optimism, but I really like the idea of call this the 21st century's renaissance.
And I would say, if I may add from that perspective, Monica, the most important thing here is that we need to reinvent ourselves. I think that it's critical. It's in terms of, for example, from that perspective, at the same time, organizations are also thinking in terms of how are we training our employees to kind of, have a more multifunctional way of addressing, reinventing them at the same time. Where are those specific personal skills that can be utilized in a different way for the benefit of the organization? So there is a lot of things that are happening. Lucky us from that perspective, that it's that thinking at the same time that we need to bring up to the table and make sure that we are thinking on those things, because that is that reinventing piece that we need.
Yes, no, I totally agree with you. And okay, so let's take it from the Renaissance, optimism, change, and moving forward to, I would like to engage a question that we got few ideas from people who registered to this event, and I think it's perfect opportunity to honor their generosity in sharing their questions. So I just combine all the ideas in one, and I will share that with you. So thank you very much for all of you guys who share your ideas with us. So basically goes around what we were talking about, that moment of the accelerating the pace of technology and the use of technology. And COVID somehow is using that David was mentioned earlier. And basically it's just demanding new skill sets. Cecilia was just mentioned that. This is a good time when we have a little bit more of time to study or take online courses and update our skills, and open space for robotics and automations, as David was saying. So how do you guys see that this is the impact of COVID in accelerating this process? And let's see the other side of the coin, which is if automation and robotics come, it is also a challenge when we talk about an industry that creates important number of jobs in local communities. So how do you guys see this impact of accelerating technology? Who would like to take that one?
And one of the things that I would say is that when a mine has to close because someone has COVID, and you're selling gold at $2,000 an ounce, you're losing a lot of money. So that has to accelerate, that has to bring something. And that something is, how do I operate that mine without impacting the people, without having to, let's say, go through infections or through, I kind of forgot the right word for that, but so we just had an issue in a mine yesterday here in the area that 3 people were infected by COVID. So are they going to close the mine? Are they going to stop the mine from producing? And again, at $2,000 gold price, who wants to stop the mine? So we need to accelerate that change and that automation and that robotics, etc.
Well, and you make a very good point, because the industry, in comparison with many other industries, is living a very unique momentum in terms of the price of commodities and all of this. So it just puts more pressure on what just David was highlighting. It's put much pressure on accelerating the process technology. Who would like to take then another idea on this question?
Okay, thank you. Now we're just going to follow up on something that we are doing now. We implemented a couple of weeks ago that my career, we never thought about that. We hired one of these engineering companies that they came and look at your processes. There are many of that. It's one of the big, large one. But it's interesting the work that we asked them to do. So the work is exactly this: how can we automatize our processes? Not just how we streamline the processes, what are the reports, and normally what these companies do, but what can we do to protect our people? Because that's what we wanted to do. This is something that, just to be clear, I don't think that the industry started thinking on that now. It started many, many years ago, because in mining, safety is priority. If there is no safety, you stop, period. No further discussion. So this has been over the last few years, self-driving trucks, how to drill in areas where potentially you got a ground fault, et cetera, et cetera. So it's already been in place, but now you are adding a level of complexity to, we need to do something differently, right? And all these changes that happen, in my mind, accelerated all this transformation for at least two to 3 years. This technology, we're using Zoom platform now. Some companies were using before, but if you recall back in March, they couldn't keep up with the volume. All the companies suddenly jump in. Rogers didn't have a capacity. Bell didn't have capacity, at least to service our remote operation. So they have to invest in infrastructure and increase all that. That was going to happen, but I believe that COVID accelerated all those changes. My personal opinion is between 2 to 3 years. The tools that we're using today, we got accustomed to using them, but they were not available. They were not as good a couple of years ago. In my prior company, I used Zoom, right? But you couldn't see anyone. It was so bad. The quality was bad. You couldn't understand. And now I'm hoping that everyone that is in the call, we got a lot of people. I think that the quality had problems. So this is a very small subset of the whole technology change that occurred, but it's I think in my mind the representation of all the changes that happen. And for now they are normal, but 6 months ago only they were not there.
Yeah, Franz, you want to add something here?
Yeah, no, it's just to add to everybody, right? So I don't think, listen, automation has been, as Fernando and David have said it, this has been actually going on for a long time. And there's always been this fear that, automation means less jobs. And not necessarily, it's just a shift because, all those machines need to be handled by somebody. And as I was mentioning, for example, again, right now, site visits have been done, by drones, right? So you need a person that is actually reviewing the drones and is keeping and at least to making sure that, the area is being monitored and secured, and, and you need the people and the technology in the back that is making sure that that drone works. And then you need another person to actually install the infrastructure. So the reality is that, even if when we move to automation, because it's going to happen, there's an infrastructure behind it and there's people behind it that are going to be needed. So going back to what David said, I think it requires a mindset, a change of mindset where people understand that as we did forcefully, we all had to, jumping into this technology bandwagon by 4 or 6 months ago when we didn't expect it. I never thought that in my life I already passed all that and I was done until the rest of my career because everything was established and I didn't have to learn anything else new. Well, here we are, right? And in fact, I can tell you that, for example, my firm, the law firm environment, it was very fixed. There's no way people can work remotely. There's no way. And we have right now, a group of 1,000 people operating, from the entire country in many cities operating remotely from their houses as productively as it happened or better than before because of certain cases. It's been incredible the change that it has brought to some families, not having to commute. Some people have to, are caregivers to kids, to people with disabilities, to parents. And the fact that they can work from home and be at home has been an incredible change, life-saving event for them. So the reality is that we are all, we are in a process of change. And that's the beautiful thing. We were forced to. We didn't want to. Everybody, even though automation was happening, everybody was resisting. It was a resisting because there's no way, and there's no way we can do remotely. There's no way that people, and we were all forced, into by this tsunami that happened overnight. We all had to basically learn to work remotely. And most of the businesses, and I feel for those ones, of course, that have had to, to close because of the nature of their businesses, and I really feel for them. But all the other businesses, or many of them, we've been able to survive because of precisely automation, because of technology, because of the fact that we can do things from home. So again, there's always, good and bad in every process, but going back to the beginning, this is a process that was ongoing. I think it's been accelerated. I think there's great benefit to it. And it also, as we all jump into a bandwagon trying to, take as much opportunity and learn as much as we can, I think the opportunities are going to be, very substantial in the future.
Yeah, we have a question here in the chat and it goes very much, and I will just kind of open a space because the question is very, very important. One of the interesting components, and actually one of the reasons that the mining industry is critical for humanity in terms of development, is the ability of the industry to reach locations that nobody else. And in many cases, unfortunately, communities in those locations are forgotten by their governments. And this creates a gap in the capacity. The technology is there, the demand is going to be there, the skill sets and the demand is there. Unfortunately, not many communities worldwide will have the ability to reach that level of being a technician in a short period of time because it's lack of that. And that is a gap that has to be closed. And the industry has helped a lot in humanity to close that gap somehow, just by the presence of the industry in these remote areas and having an impact in these communities to have a different view of what the future could be, and opens, I would say, one of the assets that not many people recognize, that is hope. And it's a valuable asset to develop humanity. And I will read the question as it is because I think it's beautiful. And I think that makes us also think on what we were talking, the future around automation and robotics, and at the same time, the component of the social responsibility when in areas where the only thing that they can offer is their hands and their capacity. So the question is, I will be interested in your experience comparing attitudes to labor in Canada and elsewhere. Particularly, it was an eye-opener when I found places in the world where there really is a choice between labor and capital. Our North American approach to improvement by cutting personal levels might not work elsewhere, but also, are we missing an opportunity to use our personnel better? It might not be all about headcount. What do you guys think about it? Let me start with Cecilia. Cecilia, you are the HR. How do you feel that question? How do you want to address an answer to one of the people in the audience sharing the time with us?
It's thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, and I think it's all the time back to what it's the general feeling of every single person in the world in terms of thinking everything is in organizations headcount. But I believe at the same time that organizations truly, and I'm speaking now personally in terms of the care. I'm working in an organization that it's a proud saying, we treat every single employee as a family member. And I see it. And I see it, and I'm happy to see that. Because I don't think that we really need to treat and be able to think all the time only in terms of the numbers. And to your point, Monica, in terms of the, I would say the support that we provide to communities as the mining industry. Yes, we do. And it's very, very important in terms of how do we really support governments in what we do in those areas. And we know organizations have done sometimes, I'm not sure, I hope I'm like, we have done a lot of things above and beyond, and sometimes really, over what governments can do because of limitations, because of infrastructure, because they are not there physically. And mining has taken a very, very active position on how do we deal and address that. And I think that it's a value that we bring. I think that at the same time, organizations need to have that heart of gold in terms of not only doing, not only doing externally, doing the same internally, but the most important thing from my perspective is when organizations really walk the talk. And
that is critical. That is critical, because this is one of the things that one of the challenges, and it's not only mining, it's a many industries outside. It's a lot of the greenwashing, no? That you just hear very beautiful poetry, very few actions, or solid, reliable actions, and that's when conflict comes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
if I can make a comment, we go to some communities. These communities are hosting us, and so the people out there, like you said, Monica, they don't have the skill set to work in the industry. But I think we have the obligation, and we do it sometimes, to train those people to do some of the work that we do out there. Now, the other thing is that we leave it here with the First Nations. They don't have many skills, let's say, when you go into a remote community, but we train them to do. And it's going to change from being an operator to being a computer technician or some other skill set. But I think we have, as a mining companies going into their communities, we have the obligation to train them on those new skill sets. So yes, you need the labor, and you have to think about, okay, we're changing how we operate. We'll train the people out there in these new ways of working.
Well, David, what you just mentioned around, there is another question around reputation here, and what we need to do, which is a very good question. But one of the things that is interesting about the training component of the industry, and is part of the reality, is that in the areas where the industry goes, nobody at the local level has a knowledge in mining or exploration unless it's a mine before. And that opens that space, and that's when I mentioned about hope, is that there is a new opportunity, it's a new motivation, it's a new activity. And the beauty of the industry is that it's kind of a start a machine in a region and becomes, and that engine for development that Franz was mentioning, is so many people behind to operate something. And that's when the multiplier factor comes as an opportunity. Fernando, I think you wanted to share something with us from your angle.
Yeah, I think that we can spend a lot of time talking about this. I do believe that mining companies have become better at managing that. Mining companies had a bad reputation for many years. but it become very clear over the last few years that you require that license to operate, as we call it. And I think we all share the same kind of methodology. And what is that? You operate in communities, you operate in their territory, you impact their area economically, socially, from the environmental point of view, and from all aspects. That was for many years kind of forgotten. We are there, we extract the material, and off we go. And really, the community is just there. That all changed, and all companies, I can speak for mine, but all companies have put a lot of additional effort, resources, people, and consultants into how do you deal with the communities, how do you hear their complaints, how do you manage those complaints, and how you work together. And most companies now are seeing the communities as partners, and you have to do that because they give the mining company the license to operate. And if you see the top 10 mining risk that these big firm companies are producing, license to operate has been the top 3 for at least 4 or 5 years, right? So, but it's taking that shift, right? And it's working, right? And back to the point, separate point in terms of training people, Cecilia knows. So we operate our mines in Nunavut, and we fight with Agnico Eagle to get the people. Everyone that graduated from the college there, we go and fight it. And we just have a fight about an environmental advisor that I just graduated. So companies, mining companies, give you that opportunity that without the mining companies, they will not have it, right? They will need to leave their communities, maybe come to the south and find places in there. So I think that there is still a lot of work to be done in the future. Companies have done a lot, but there is still a lot more to be done to regain that trust.
Yes, Franz and Cecilia. Wow, this is fantastic. Yes, Franz.
Well, I just want to mention that a couple of things. My mining clients, when COVID started, one of their biggest concerns was people. Okay, so they did not at all wanted to get rid of anybody. And quite the opposite. They actually did everything in their power to help. There's people that had to be repatriated. There's people that got actually stuck in different places. There's people that, again, when it comes to health and safety, I know they put incredible, safety protocols, and really good ones. I can tell you some way better than even what we have here, to isolate and look after the people that got, sick. So, when it comes about, headcount versus economics, I can tell you at least, and I'm very fortunate because that's a promise I made to myself many years ago. I was only going to work with those ones that are really good and they really care about their people and care about the environment and care about social issues and care about everything. And I've been extremely lucky to be working with mining companies that are really, really walking the talk and, and really putting extra effort to help. And in that same vein, for example, talking about training, most of them actually have university programs, access programs, training programs, et cetera, et cetera. So following what Fernando was saying, giving opportunities that otherwise would not be available, for the people in the community and for their employees and the kids of their employees, because what they want is that those kids and those young generations then come and join the company and actually grow with them, which I think is really important. So they have that. And they're really, trying to make a difference. I think, yes, the industry, many years ago, we did, the industry did horrible things. Absolutely. That is not a fight. What we haven't done well is to let the world know and let people know what good we're doing. And, same as is happening in many other industries, like in renewables and this and that, there's a lot, we need more awareness and people should know that actually it is, the new generations that are now joining the boards and joining the management of all these companies are younger people that really have in their mind the understanding that, without sustainability, mining, it doesn't work. And a world without mining doesn't work either. So they work hand in hand. We all need to work together. And that's the new management. And that's what I see, at least, is younger people and new people coming into boards and management to really, trying to make a difference. And I think we should do a better job letting the, people know about that.
Yeah, well, we have 5 minutes, and I want to wrap up and give each of you room to share your final thoughts. But my question for all of you in this final statement and all what we learn about inclusion, participation, our families, the distance, and all of this, what you guys would like to share with everybody about something, one of the really good things that you would like to highlight of this time? Let's bring it to the very positive angle. What is something that each of you think, you know, this was good and this was really good? Let's start with you, David, and with this we close. And everybody, thank you very much.
I think the biggest impact that COVID has made in mining is that mining is going to be one of the pillars of the recovery for most countries. And that will present a lot of opportunities for people with experience, people, starting universities, people that want to work in these areas and in these environments. So I think that would be one of the best things that's coming out of COVID.
Thank you, David. Cecilia. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, Fernando, go. That's
okay. No, but I'll be more general, and I sort of as a impact of the COVID, we all needed to change. We were forced to change, as we discussed out here. I think that the positive to me is that we all did it, right? We thought that, oh my God, this is not going to be possible. I'm stressed, I'm mental issues, but we all did it. And I think that the Hispanic community, I guess, they got that proud, that flexibility, and that capacity of thinking outside the box. Okay. That is key and super important to adapt, because we all know the jobs that we do today will change in 5 years, 10 years. It will be different, and we need to adapt, and we need to embrace the change. And I think that that's what I would highlight, and I will encourage everyone listening to us to always keep that in mind and always adapt and add value to whatever you're doing.
Listo. Okay, we have 1 minute. And Fernando, I love it. We did it. Yes.
Yes, we did it. And I would like to highlight the importance of resilience, the importance of adapting, of reaching out, of taking care of each other, of seeking for help, because at the same time we need to be really conscious that this is a very stressful time, and that we are not alone. That we are together on this, and I think that is one of the main things that we need to
beautiful.
share.
It is beautiful. Franz.
Just to add to everybody else, understand that this could be a good time if we use this time to get closer to our families. To use the time, as I was mentioned before, for me has been wonderful. Actually, stop traveling, spending more time at home, spending more time with my son, even though we're working. So we all need to, as we did it, as we need to reach out, as we own this together, we can all use this time to better ourselves, to better our families, and to better everything around us. Super. I think that's it.
Well, this is fantastic. So basically the last minute, I will just speak fast and go that. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for this Renaissance conversation. Yes, we did it. Yes, we are in a change. And yes, we're going to make it fantastic. And thank you, Hispanos in Mining, for putting us together. And all of you, a big hug, a big apapacho. Muchas gracias a todos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Es una dicha. Manuel, muchas gracias a ti por la oportunidad. Últimas palabras.
Muchas gracias a todos, and thanks everyone for participating. So it has been very insightful, and hope all our attendees has learned something, and very insightful thoughts that you have shared. Thanks everyone.
Y a cuidarse mucho. Thank
Gracias.
you so much. Gracias a todos. Un abrazo.